All right, so today we're going to be diving into HUYA's Q3 2024 earnings call.
Yeah, fresh off the press, November 12th.
We got the transcript right here in front of us and
Some market summaries as well.
some market summaries from the day of. So
Should be interesting.
if you aren't familiar, HUYA is a Chinese company that's essentially the equivalent of Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
So massive live game streaming platform.
Publicly traded company, trades under HUYA on the NYSE.
And their stock took a little bit of a hit today.
It did.
Closed down over 6%. So we're going to figure out why and what this earnings call tells us about where HUYA and maybe even the whole gaming world is headed.
Yeah, beyond just like the surface level news and the numbers, like what's really going on with their business strategy.
Okay, so let's start with the financials. Did HUYA make bank this quarter, or are they struggling?
Well, I mean, the initial reaction from the market kind of suggests some trouble.
Okay.
Total net revenues came in at 1.54 billion RMB,
Okay.
which is actually down a bit compared to last year.
So not exactly that kind of like up into the right growth
Yeah, not the hockey stick growth.
that investors are looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's where things get interesting. Remember, HUYA is trying to kind of reinvent themselves.
Right.
They're not just a streaming platform anymore. They're
Yeah.
pushing hard into what they call game-related services.
Right, and I saw that mentioned in the materials. So what exactly does that include?
So think of it like this. They're expanding beyond just letting people watch games.
Okay.
They're getting into selling in-game items, distributing new games, and even creating their own gaming-related content, basically building a whole ecosystem.
Interesting. And how is that side of the business performing?
This is the part that surprised a lot of people. That game-related services segment grew by a whopping 209.3% year over year.
Whoa. Okay, so while their core streaming revenue might be down, this new area is exploding.
Exactly.
Got it.
They pulled in 410.2 million RMB from these new ventures.
Okay.
To put that into perspective, that's over a quarter of their total revenue this quarter.
Okay, so that's a significant chunk of change.
Yeah.
But is this growth sustainable?
Right.
And is it just a flash in the pan, or is HUYA really onto something here?
Well, that's what everyone wants to know.
Okay.
And that's where the details of this earnings call get really fascinating.
Okay.
They actually shed light on exactly how they're pulling off this massive growth in game-related services.
I'm all ears.
So one thing that stands out is the role of HUYA's streamer network.
Okay.
They have a massive pool of popular streamers who have direct access to highly engaged gamers.
Makes sense. I mean, streamers have these huge followings, and their fans, really trust their recommendations.
Exactly. So HUYA is cleverly leveraging these streamers to promote games, sell in-game items, and even create custom content for new game launches.
Okay.
They're essentially turning their streamers into powerful marketing machines.
That's a smart move. It's like influencer marketing, but on steroids, and it's working.
It is. And during the call, the CEO, Junhong Huang, actually highlighted a specific promotional event where the total value of in-game items sold exceeded 50 million RMB just from that one event.
Wow. That's a powerful testament to the influence of these streamers. But this all begs the question, why is the stock down if they're doing so well in these new areas?
Good point. It seems like investors are still laser focused on that decline in live streaming revenue.
Got it.
They might be hesitant to believe that these new ventures can truly offset the weakness in the core business.
So they're not convinced that HUYA can successfully transition away from its traditional model.
That seems to be the case, at least for now.
Okay.
But it's important to remember that HUYA is operating in a really challenging environment right now.
Right.
The macroeconomic situation in China is tough, and the gaming market itself is showing signs of cooling down.
So achieving this kind of growth in such a tough climate is actually even more impressive than it first appears?
I think so. It suggests they're onto something big here, even if Wall Street hasn't fully grasped it yet.
Okay, so we've got the financial overview, and it's a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
But we've also seen the potential of these game-related services. What we need to do now is dig into the specifics of how HUYA is actually executing on this strategy.
Absolutely. Let's take a closer look at some of the key initiatives that are driving this growth. Where do you want to start?
Well, they talked a lot about game distribution.
Okay.
Let's dive into that first. They're essentially becoming a launch pad for new games, right?
That's right. But they're not just hosting downloads. They're actively partnering with game studios to create full-blown marketing campaigns, leveraging their streamer network to reach millions of gamers.
So they're basically using their platform and their influencers to give these new games massive exposure right out of the gate.
Exactly. And they're incentivizing their streamers to get involved, so it's a win-win for everyone. HUYA gets a cut of the revenue, the streamers get paid, and the game developers get a huge marketing boost.
Smart move.
Yeah.
It's like they're building a hype machine for these new games.
And it's clearly working. They mentioned on the call that revenue from their game distribution channel has grown over 20 times compared to last year.
Wow, that's a pretty staggering number.
Yeah.
What kind of games are they distributing? Any big names we might recognize?
Oh yeah, they name-dropped some of the biggest titles in China right now. Honor of Kings, DNF Mobile Peacekeeper Elite. They're going after the heavy hitters.
So they're not messing around. They're going straight for the games that everyone wants to play.
And they're not limiting themselves to just one type of game. They're working with studios to distribute both mobile and PC games, which gives them a wider reach.
It's almost like they're trying to become the Steam China,
Mm-hmm.
but with this added layer of live streaming and influencer marketing.
That's a great analogy. And they have a built-in advantage because of their existing relationships with game developers through their live streaming business. That gives them a lot of leverage when it comes to securing those distribution deals.
Okay, so game distribution is clearly a big win for them. What about those in-game item sales? That seems like a trickier business to get right.
It definitely has its challenges, but HUYA is taking a really unique approach. They're focusing on exclusivity and customization.
What do you mean by that?
They're working directly with game studios to create special in-game items that are only available through HUYA.
So it's like limited edition merchandise for the digital world.
Mm-hmm.
Gamers love that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And they're taking it a step further by creating items that are tailored to specific streamers or events.
So you could get a virtual sword that's only available from your favorite streamer's HUYA page. That's pretty cool.
And it taps into that collector's mentality that a lot of gamers have. They want to own unique items that show off their fandom.
I bet those streamers are making a killing from these deals.
Probably. And it's a win-win for everyone involved. HUYA gets a cut of the sales, the streamers get extra income, and the game developers get increased exposure for their games.
But isn't there a risk of alienating viewers who feel like their favorite streamers are just shills for HUYA?
That's a valid concern, and it's something HUYA addressed on the call. They emphasize that they're being very selective with their partnerships and promotions.
So they're not just slapping a HUYA logo on every in-game item they can find.
Right. They're focusing on high-quality items that actually enhance the gaming experience and that are genuinely appealing to their audience.
And they're being transparent about the whole process.
Yes, they talked about being upfront with viewers about how the revenue sharing works with streamers.
Okay, so it sounds like they're trying to strike a balance between monetization and maintaining the trust of their audience.
Exactly. And they seem to be doing a pretty good job of it so far.
All right, so we've covered game distribution and in-game item sales. What about the advertising side of things? That's a pretty competitive market.
It is, but HUYA has a major advantage, their audience. Remember, they have a massive community of hardcore gamers who are highly engaged with their platform.
Right, that's the holy grail for advertisers.
Exactly. And HUYA is leveraging their audience in a couple of interesting ways. They're working with their streamers to create sponsored content.
So streamers are integrating ads into their streams.
In a way, but it's more subtle than just banner ads. They're working with game companies to create engaging content that features their games.
So it's more like native advertising.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
feels more natural and less disruptive to the viewing experience.
Smart. And are they working with any big names on the advertising side?
Oh, yeah. They mentioned partnerships with some major players like Arena, Breakout, World of Warcraft, and Naruto Mobile.
So they're attracting top-tier advertisers who are willing to pay a premium for access to this highly valuable audience.
And that's translating into some serious revenue for HUYA. They saw a big jump in game advertising revenue this quarter.
Okay, so they're firing on all cylinders when it comes to these game-related services. Game distribution, in-game items, advertising. They're tackling it all.
And they're showing no signs of slowing down. In fact, they hinted at some even bigger plans for the future.
Ooh, I love a good tease. What'd they say?
Well, they talked about deepening their collaborations with content creators and industry partners to extend their reach beyond the HUYA platform.
So they're not just thinking about their own website and app anymore. They're thinking about the bigger picture.
Exactly. They want to be everywhere gamers are. They even mentioned working with other platforms to expand their reach.
Ambitious, but definitely smart. They're essentially positioning themselves as the connective tissue of the gaming world.
And they're also planning to work more closely with game developers and publishers to further solidify their presence in the game market.
It's a bold vision. But if they can pull it off, they could become an absolute powerhouse in the gaming industry.
No doubt. But it's not all sunshine and roses. There are definitely some risks involved in this strategy.
Right. Every investment has its downsides. What are some of the potential roadblocks HUYA might face?
Well, one that came up repeatedly during the call was the regulatory environment in China. The government has been cracking down on various industries, including gaming.
Right. That's a big concern. What kind of impact could that have on HUYA?
There's always the possibility of new regulations or restrictions that could limit their operations or even force them to change their business model.
So that's a big unknown hanging over their heads.
Exactly. And then there's the overall macroeconomic environment. China's economy has been slowing down, which could impact consumer spending on gaming.
Right. If people have less disposable income, they might cut back on things like in-game items or premium streaming subscriptions.
Exactly. So those are definitely factors to consider when evaluating HUYA's prospects.
Okay, so it's a bit of a high-risk, high-reward situation. Big potential, but also some significant challenges to overcome.
That's a fair assessment. But one thing is clear, HUYA is a company on the move. They're not sitting still. They're actively trying to shape the future of gaming in China.
All right, welcome back, wrapping up our HUYA deep dive today.
Yeah, we covered their financials, their big move into game-related services, even throughout a crazy, this is not financial advice, trade idea.
Had to spice things up a bit.
Of course.
But before we let you go, a few more interesting details from this earnings call.
Yeah, definitely some stuff that stood out to me, too, as we were prepping.
Like one thing that caught my eye was how much they talked about content. It seems like they're really going all in on creating a diverse library of, gaming content.
Yeah, they're not just relying on their streamers anymore, which is interesting. They're putting serious money into esports tournaments. They even have their own in-house production teams making original gaming shows.
So it's like they're trying to be the one-stop shop for anything gaming related. You can watch live streams, catch esports events, even tune in for some original shows.
All on one platform. It makes sense though, right? Keep users engaged, give them a reason to keep coming back.
Yeah, content is king, especially these days. You got to offer something compelling to stand out.
Absolutely. And they're not afraid to experiment with different formats either.
Oh, yeah. What were some of the things that stood out to you?
They talked about testing an interactive gameplay mode for Honor of Kings, where viewers can actually influence what happens in the game.
Hold on, really?
Yeah, sending in bullet chats and GIFs that impact the gameplay.
So you're watching a live stream, and your messages could actually change what's happening in the game.
That's the idea. It's pretty wild.
That's next level.
It shows they're thinking outside the box, for sure, trying to push the boundaries of what live streaming can be.
Creating a whole new way to experience games.
Exactly. And speaking of new ways to experience games, we got to talk about Tencent.
Ah, yes, the Tencent connection.
It's a bit complicated.
Got complicated.
Right, because Tencent is a major shareholder in HUYA.
Right.
But they also own a competing live streaming platform.
So how does that work?
Well, HUYA made it clear they're collaborating with Tencent in several ways, sharing content, co-producing shows, that kind of thing.
So trying to find that middle ground between competing and working together.
It's probably the best approach, honestly, in a market that's always changing.
Yeah, leverage each other's strengths, but still carve out their own space.
Exactly. So we've got a company with big plans, some strong partnerships, and a willingness to try new things. But we always got to talk about the risks, too.
Right. Every investment has downsides.
Yeah.
So what should people keep in mind when it comes to HUYA?
Well, one thing they mentioned a few times was the regulatory environment in China.
Right. The government has been cracking down on a lot of industries lately, including gaming.
Yeah, exactly. And there's always a chance of new regulations or restrictions popping up that could really impact HUYA's business.
So that's something investors need to watch closely. It's a risk that could change things quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole macroeconomic situation in China. The economy has been slowing down, and that could affect how much people spend on gaming.
Makes sense. If people have less money to spend, they might cut back on things like in-game items or those premium subscriptions.
Exactly. So the overall health of the Chinese economy is a big factor to consider when you're thinking about HUYA as an investment.
Okay, so we've covered the good, the bad, and the unknown. What's the big takeaway here? What should people be thinking about when they're considering HUYA?
I think the main thing is that HUYA is in transition. They're moving away from that traditional live streaming model and betting big on these new game-related services.
And so far, it seems like that bet is paying off. They're seeing massive growth there.
Yeah, But it's still early days. There are definitely some risks and challenges ahead.
Like we talked about, the regulatory environment and the macroeconomic outlook are big question marks.
Right, it's a high risk, high reward kind of situation.
So investors need to decide if they're comfortable with that.
But one thing is clear, HUYA isn't just sitting around. They're actively trying to shape the future of gaming in China, which makes them a really interesting company to watch.
Very well said. All right, folks, that wraps up our HUYA deep dive. We covered a lot of ground, but remember, this is just the starting point.
Always do your own research before making any investment decisions.
Absolutely, and never forget,
This is not financial advice.
this is not financial advice. Till next time, happy investing, everyone.